Welcome, everyone. I am especially thrilled and delighted to welcome all of you to this event featuring some of our brilliant local talent, but talent that, like so much talent in Chestertown, really transcends the local and is worldly talent indeed. I think this is also an especially nice time of the year to have this event scheduled because it's that moment. I'm lucky enough to work down in the Custom House right on the Chester River, and it's that time of year when the river is sort of waking up again in springtime, and I see nods from people who also live along the Chester River that it's when there are all those sort of fresh sights and sounds and smells of the river in springtime. So Meredith and the musicians will help us to greet that season today. And in fact, this is the first of two programs on the Chester River that the Starr Center is doing in the next week, and I'll tell you in a moment about the second one. But first, to introduce our guests today, first and foremost, Meredith Davies Hadaway, who was actually one of the first people I met in Chestertown when I came here. That was before she was publishing her poetry, actually, about a dozen years ago. But I very quickly learned that she was the Harp Lady of Chestertown. In fact, my predecessor as director of the Starr Center, Ted Widmer, wrote a song called Harp Lady of Chestertown. I won't try to sing, that's all about Meredith. And maybe I shouldn't have been surprised when I found out that she wrote poetry as well as played the harp, because of course the harp, the lyre, is that ancient symbol of poetry, and Meredith really makes that connection, not just metaphorical, but real. And I know that many of you know Meredith, but you may not know all of her very impressive achievements, so I'll tell you a little bit about those. She's the author of 3 collections of poetry, all issued from Word Poetry Press. Her most recent book is At the Narrows, which is fresh out. In fact, it's so fresh out, I was just looking at it for the first time over there. The copies are still warm to the touch, so I invite you to check them out for yourself. Meredith's work explores the birds, bees, bugs, trees, marshes, and especially the waters of our own Eastern Shore, evoking memory and mystery as they shape our lives. Meredith has read her work in both literary venues and nature centers across the U.S., and as you may know, she's also a musician who plays her harp at the bedside in hospitals and hospices and nursing homes, or in performances with her band, Harp Soul, that's also here. She's received fellowships from the Virginia Center for Creative Arts and Individual Artist Award from Maryland State Arts Council, and multiple Pushcart Prize nominations. In addition to publishing her work frequently, she also serves as poetry editor for the Somerset Review. She holds an MFA in poetry from Vermont College of Fine Arts, and as many, if not most of you know, she's also former Rose O'Neill Writer-in-Residence at Washington College, as well as Vice President for Communications and Marketing here. So I'm also pleased to welcome our musical guests, Harp Soul, a group in which Meredith is joined by Ben Bennington on guitar, our very own Rebecca Hardy on oboe, Bob Ortiz on percussion, and Nevin Dawson on viola. Before I welcome, I invite them to start the event, I'd also like to mention, as I said, that there are copies of the book for sale over there. It's a beautiful book. I haven't read the poems yet, but some of us were just remarking on what a handsomely designed book it is, designed by Diane Landskroner, in fact, who is Diane here?
And the artwork is done by...
An artwork by Faith Wilson, yes, on the cover. So this is really, it's truly a family labor of love. And I'll also mention that for Washington College students, the book is available at half price, like all of our books this semester. As I said, there's another event on the Chester River coming up. That's a prose event instead of a poetry event. It's Tuesday afternoon, and it's called Stories of the Chester River, a Waterfront Revisited and Reimagined. That's right here at 6 p.m. on Tuesday. And at that event, students who have been taking a course this semester uncovering stories of the Chester River will be sharing some of the stories that they've heard and recorded. Mayor Chris Serino will also be here to lead a discussion about the future, not just the history, but the future of Chestertown's waterfront. And there will be opportunities for all of you and the other guests to share their Chester River stories and Chester River dreams for the for the future. So now to share their Chester River dreams, please join me in welcoming Meredith Hadaway and Harp Soul.
We're going to start with a set of 3 marches. Bran Baru is believed to be the most ancient surviving traditional tune from Ireland, followed by what was originally known as the Pikesman's March. We call it the Halting March. And then the March of the King of Laois, which is much more modern. I think it dates to 1641. So. Thank you. This next tune is actually from a Norwegian group called Secret Garden. The music that we played, a lot of it is traditional Celtic, but a lot of it is Celtic influenced, which is how I would describe this. It's more like Celtic fusion. And so it is a modern composed piece featuring Rebecca Hardy on oboe. Thank you. If anybody wants to know what all these levers are about, ask me later. But they're important. Okay, hopefully those are right. This is another contemporary piece that's Celtic influenced by the Canadian singer-songwriter Loreena McKennit. And it's one of our favorites to perform because there's a great invitation to improvisation that's inherent in this tune. So we want to play for you Tango to Evora featuring Nevin Dawson on viola. Okay, violin, not viola. Nevin Dawson. So while we're moving into the poetry phase, and we will have one more musical number, I just want to say that Nevin will be performing at the Mainstay May 30th in a show called The Versatile Viola, which will really show off that great talent that you saw a little glimpse of.
Meredith as well.
So thanks everybody for turning out tonight, and thanks especially to my musical friends for agreeing to join me for this little celebration. It's a wonderful group to collaborate with, as you can see, very, very talented. And people are always asking me, you know, what's the connection between my harp music, particularly the kind of music I play, and my poems? And I don't have a very good answer for that, but I would just say that one of the things that draws me to Celtic music is that most of it is played in harmonies that are open fifths, which means the third is missing. If you remember your elementary piano lesson, in a C, E, G chord, that's the E. And without an E in those chords, you don't know if it's major or minor. So there's an open and kind of haunting quality to it. And to me, that kind of reminds me a lot of poetry, where you get to fill in the third. And a good poem will at once be a poem of absence and presence, and a poem of mourning and celebration. And I think that's very much the spirit that informed this book, which is basically, At the Narrows, is a book about vanishing lifestyles and life forms. It came in large part from my teaching of an eco-poetry workshop. And so I'd just like to read a few poems and hope you enjoy them. One of the things that my students and I talk about is how everything is a poem. And thanks to my colleague Jean Dubrow, I spent some time in the literary house in a room in the attic, staring out the window instead of writing. And that window, for reasons that will become obvious, was inspirational. Stink bugs. Unwilling immigrants, all overcoat and banded leg. I find you pacing up and down the edges of my window pane. Packed and shipped by accident from some Asian port, you gather here as if a passing plane might take you home. One overturned on the ledge below now waves like an old uncle whose body has become a burden too heavy to set right. Is it wrong to hate you? Helpless, except your stink. A pungent smell described as like cilantro, meant to keep the birds and lizards off your back. I cannot kill you, though I'm told that liquid soap will do the trick. Instead, I leave you dreaming at the glass, where an intermittent buzz and flutter will remind me how far away home is, and how we all want to go there, and how some people love cilantro, and others think it tastes like soap. Okay, I don't usually plan to read this one, but because Jean Dubrow is here, and another inspired story from Jean about how a banana saved her life, and then a trip to the Origins of Man exhibit at the Museum of Natural History, where I saw a sign that said, "We share 60% of our DNA with a banana." Really? This explains so much. Why King Kong fell for blonde Fay Ray. Why everything has strings attached. Why we're drawn to rum but cringe at the sound of blenders. Why we say someone untested is still green. Why we feel safer in a bunch. Why we think banana peels are funny. Why Basho chose to name himself Banana for the kindred plant that grew beside his hut. Why, when we lose control, we go bananas. My friend tells me bananas saved her life. A childhood illness back in Africa, a tortured stomach and wailing mouth that nothing could put right until, oh brave banana brother, unlike your fallen apple cousin, you do not tempt but sacrifice. No wonder banana clusters spring from hearts and grow in tears called hands. Like you, our skins are tough, our souls are tender, and yes, like you, we bruise so easily. Another thing we talked about in my eco-poetry class is, life on the river and what's there and what's not. And I had always been told when I moved here that there were river otters in the river, particularly upriver. And I have looked for those river otters all my time in Chestertown. Every time I'm on that boat, I want to see a river otter so badly. And finally, I decided that it didn't really matter if they were real or imaginary. They gave me some gift, even by the possibility of being there. So this poem is dedicated to those little creatures I've never seen, river otters. Though I've never seen them, please let them be here. Small gods of happiness that somersault through the river's upper reach. I want to hear them chuckle and romp. I want to see them float backward, fish flopped across bellies, fur ruffed at their throats. Let there be breakfast for otters and naps in the sun. Let them wheel in the current, pumping webbed toes. Let them slap at the tide as they tumble. Let them hide when I churn my boat upriver. Enough to imagine them holding their breath beneath the large, sad surface when my shadow passes. I don't know how many of you know that last week was International Dark Skies Week. And this is an important eco-event because it's in response to light pollution, which I'm sure you are aware of the fact that we don't get to see stars in the sky anymore, that there is really almost no place left on the planet that is really and truly dark. I started to write this poem actually at the Breadloaf Orion Environmental Writers Conference. It was an assignment to write about something dark. And I had met at Breadloaf a Persian poet named Aga Shahid Ali, who sadly died a few years later. But he brought a Persian poetry form called the ghazal to America. And so this is dedicated to him, and it's called Even the Dark. And it starts with an epigraph from Shahid Ali that says, "And as we forgot the dark, we forgot even the rain." So here's the form, which is a Persian form based on repetition. Forget the stars, forget the moon, even the dark is leaving us. Instead of night, a halide afternoon, the dark is leaving us. Peppered moth, your wings turned black to match the sooted bark. Turn back to your cocoon, everything dark is leaving us. Windows, with your open throat, the breath of night's relief, you may as well just shut the room. The dark is leaving us. Extinguish candles. We don't need their little orbs. We kindle clouds to shine all night, and so the dark is leaving us. Only the blind now see what once made blindness tragic. The long mystery, its black magic. Yes, even the dark. Rain can't fall at night. Instead, it weaves through phony day to drop on one last place that wanted to be bright. All right, let there be light. Let us flutter in the glittering ash of spark and blaze. Let us have our ways. We don't believe in the dark. This is a timely poem about another disappearing animal, but apparently it hasn't disappeared from the Washington College campus. I know you guys all have seen Myotis lucificus, the brown bat, that used to be prolific everywhere on the East Coast, and particularly up in New England, and it's now all but extinct there and soon to be extinct here, but not soon enough. If you're on campus and see one, Jerry Roderick asked that you not touch it, because apparently there was a report of a rabid bat on campus. But this poem is about nice bats. Myotis lucificus. I want to apologize to the small brown bats who orbited our nights, oblivious to backyard barbecues, long walks by the river, the old man wheeling his trash to the curb. They were willing to let us proceed as if there were no bodies hurling themselves from the hurling themselves from the attic when dusk freed them from the hot stupor of their days. Reeling like drunk birds, they chased clouds of gnats and slipped through our shadows. Bats are more closely related to people than to mice, I read. They have hair. They feed milk to their young. Bats are not blind, despite what lies we have told ourselves. They listen. Each high-pitched cry comes back to say where moths flutter, where wasps rest their wings. Now the bats are leaving us. Palms open like sleepwalkers, we tiptoe through the blank spaces where summer used to live. No cries, no echo, only our small hearts chittering. This isn't exactly an eco poem because it's a different kind of animal, but one very close to our hearts. And I want to dedicate this to my friend, the greatest animal lover I know, Troms Hollingsworth. Blessing of the animals. Dogs and cats, 3 white mice, and a ferret wait for Father Tom to sweep across the lawn in holy robes. He stops to pat a furry head and scratch a chin. Here and there, he throws a bone of praise to the owner for clever tricks or perfect manners. Mostly, it's children who strangle-hold a web of leashes, but there's the octogenarian with her silver cat, the visiting New Yorker's cairn, and the mud-splattered horse mucker holding her Jack Russell Terrier. One by each, a blessing. Father Tom has seen it work. No need to look for evidence of soul in this milk-bone menagerie. What could be more human than their halitosis, shedding coats, and endless hankering? Clouds shift behind the steeple, and a moist breeze threatens, but Father Tom, unruffled, kneels beside a white-faced golden who is too crippled to rise. She gives the priest a patient look and licks the proffered hand as if to say, "Go with dogs, my friend. Learn to leave behind the things you can't retrieve." Okay, just one more before we conclude with a musical number. Actually, I'll read this poem, then I'm going to ask my bandmates to come back for the last poem. This one's the title poem. I have to say this is dedicated to Captain Andy McCowan because I took my eco-poetry class out on one of the Echo Hill boats. Actually, it was that little dinghy thing. I can't remember the name of it now, but it was like the least impressive boat Echo Hill has, and yet we had a blast. And we talked about, the names of the parts of the boat, and they're just so resonant. And also we talked about the fact that wooden boats, there are not many left. And what a vanishing lifestyle that whole way of earning a living on the water has become. So this is another sort of endangered species poem, if you will, called At the Narrows. Now, when even midday sun holds shadows, and only the wooden boats are left, bless scarred hulls and splintered pilings. Bless the hands that still twist eel into lines of hard commerce. Bless the motor's stutter, declaring, yes, we will go out. Bless the foul mud that peppers the gunnel, the ascent of the bait, its twitch as it goes over the roller. Bless the slow crab, too greedy for stink to see the net coming, and the basket, slats leaking a scrabble of claws. Wanda J., Alice Rose, Edna, grubby river angels, decks swollen with rain, smelling of brine and rot, all divot and slop. Bless your dead rise, your hard chine, your rudder. In the morning, all will blur into mist. Crabs will begin their exodus to deeper waters. We tell ourselves they will be back. May this, too, be true. Harp and Soul, come on up. So I'd like to read one last poem and then play a song that relates to it, which I think you'll figure out. And so we'll close with this. This is based on a true story, and I don't know how many of you came to the lecture about the guy who, I'm blanking on his name right now, but it was the lecture demonstration in Hotchkiss of the guy who writes music with bugs and plays along with birds. So my experience was playing my harp on the pier in front of what was his name? Rothenberg, David Rothenberg, thank you. So anyway, I was waiting for these guys, and I was sitting on the end of the dock with my harp, and this really happened, folks. Heron and harp. I dragged my harp across the gapped terrain of pier, 100 feet with nothing underfoot but slats of air and swirling tide, and placed the harp in front of me to play The Water is Wide, a sort of joke here where the channel is so narrow. A few notes into the song, a squawk. Flying low, a heron glides across the river's edge to land beside me. Head tucked so he can stare me down from his perch on a piling, summoned by the strange cascade of frequencies. Or did he mistake the arching frame for another large and gawky bird? I keep the tune going, a slow air, we would call it, as the oscillations rise and then retreat, leaving song and bird, the harp and me, suspended in a pulse, a wave, a measure, where the water is wide enough to hold us all. We need a little help with this.
No, it's okay. Let's sing without the sound. How about that?
No, let's turn it up.
Here. I'm going to
It
mix
shouldn't,
over you.
it shouldn't be hard to do.
No wonder.
Already tried that.
Yeah, I know. Let's see if we can. Where's this? It's
Calling on Harrison, Ricardo.
No, that's near enough. That's near enough. That's near enough.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's why we're an acoustic band.
Yeah, exactly. Is that good?
Yes, ma'am. Water's wide, I can't cross o'er, nor have I wings that I may fly. Give me a boat that can carry two, and both shall cross, my love and I. Ship there is, she sails the seas. She's laden deep, as deep can be, but not so deep as the love I'm in. And I know not if I sink or swim.
Thank you. Thank you, Adam. CV All-Stars, Ricardo and Harrison. Thank you for doing the sound. Thank you, Michael Buckley. Thank you, Harp and Soul. Thank all of you for coming.
Thank you.